Objective History versus Relativism. This is an essay on Sir Richard Evans' defense of objectivity in historical truth compared to E.H. Carr's advocating for relativism. To begin with, in placing a great deal of emphasis in historical objectivity, the historian Richard Evans explores effectively the historiographical concerns that face academia. The issues effectively responded to by Evans includes how history has been constructed and recorded over time, and the changes to the approaches of history. Threatened by relativism and postmodernity, Evans maintains a neo-empiricist perspective to defend the existence of the Holocaust, the most painful of all topics. Arthur Marwick agrees with this since he is also an empiricist and insists in research through archives. The Greek writer Herodotus from the 3rd century BC demonstrates how history has been created over millennia, and the relativistic historian E.H. Carr believes in the existence of many different truths. Therefore, the nature of history due to the different ways it has been constructed and recorded, and the different approaches and interpretations have been influenced by political beliefs and personal perspectives. Taking the perspective of a neo-empiricist, the historian Sir Richard Evans conveys in his book Telling Lies About Hitler, 2002, how the debate of whether the Holocaust existed threatens the historical and academic establishment. Through rhetorical questions, he states how those historians from the postmodernist and relativist schools of thought threaten historical objectivity, and in doing so can have profound consequences through which people can reject terrible events in history, such as the horrors of the Second World War, including the Holocaust. Evans affirms the necessity of history as existing independently of subjectivity, beyond interpretations and opinions, for this allows the historian to produce, through an emphasis on research into the archives, the search for truth and facts. Therefore, Evans addresses the critical issues of postmodernity and subjectivity in history, essentially reaffirming objective truth in history, through which is obtainable through archival research in order to defend the existence of events such as the Holocaust. The construction of history and its writing has changed dramatically over time, possibly due to the context of the political, cultural, and personal perspectives that derive from the time period. The father of history and Greek historian Herodotus was deeply influenced by the events of the Persian War and aspired to recount the circumstances of his time in his book Histories, 440 BC. He consulted witnesses and examined monuments whenever possible, according to A.P. Fell. Herodotus, in essence, attempted to go about recording down events methodically about the foreign policies of the Greeks and non-Greek states. There are, however, some historians who disagree with his style of writing, since he intended to recount them the Persian War as Homer recounted the Trojan War, according to Felling. The recording of history has clearly changed in both ideology and methodology through the Age of Enlightenment in the 18th century and after. The empiricists, such as Arthur Marwick, believed in the importance of telling the truth. He states that forms of literature, film, and painting are important documents of recording the past, according to Arthur Marwick. Therefore, the construct and writing of history has changed significantly as a result of evolving methods and interpretations from the time of Herodotus all the way to Marwick and even to Sir Richard Evans, which challenges Evans' perspective, as context does play a role in shaping scholars' own opinions. Approaches of history have reformed over time as new ideas and methods develop as a consequence of culture and social contexts. Facing the start of a new decade of liberalism after the Second World War and 1950s conservatism, the historian E.H. Carr asserts that in relativism, by arguing that there are many different truths. In his work What is History? In 1961, Carr approaches the events of the past with skepticism, as if manipulated through the pre-selected material and influenced by the opinions of the historian. Carr disagrees with the idea that history is definitive, stating, "There is no objective historical truth." This challenges Evans' viewpoint, as Carr is essentially illustrating how history is influenced completely subjectively down to the very intention and context of the historian. Study the historian before you study the historical facts. Examples of this in academia are the historians such as Hingley, who lists down his research interests of globalization and world economy in order to easily portray where his ideas about the past derive from. The relativist was the precursor of forerunners to the postmodernistic school of thought in history, as both denied objectivity in the study of the past. The belief in the hard core of historical facts existing objectively is a preposterous fallacy, according to Carr. Therefore, approaches to history have changed over time as a consequence of personal and cultural context, which brings new perspectives for interpreting the past. These approaches in contemporary history, including relativism, postmodernity, and Neo-Empiricism, all show the different viewpoints that and interpretations that compete against each other when clarifying things that happened in the past. In summation, the perspective placed forth by Sir Richard Evans is an attempt to justify his neo-empiricist approach to history via the issue of relativism and postmodernity and how they challenge the objectivity in history, which can hence lead to the doubting of events such as the Holocaust. Since this can have profound consequences, the view of Evans in his position of empiricism shows how history has been constructed and recorded over time, and the differing approaches to history that exist. Evans effectively portrays his interpretation of the past, however his statement does overlook the effect of personal, social, and cultural contexts which can affect historians' outlooks on history. Sir Richard Evans merely attempts to defend historical objectivity with another issue in how relativism may possibly bring about Holocaust denialism. Hence, he weakly answers the problem, the crux of the argument, of scholastic selectivism in certain interpretations of history, and disregards the effect of context on the historian. Thus, his statement falls short in evaluating the concerns of historiography in history. Ultimately, thank you for watching and hope you've learned something about history or the interpretations of history, historiography as a result. Thank you. Bye-bye.